Okay, this video is on using diagonals in perspective, and this is number 2. So let's get started. This is on using diagonals and how to create distances in perspective. Okay, so here's an interior. Now, this is one that you may have created on a grid, but the main purpose of this video is just to show how to use diagonals when locating various things like, say, a row of pictures on a wall, some cabinets, or maybe an area rug that has a symmetrical pattern in it. So let's get started. Let's say you want to put a row of picture frames on this wall right here. And if you're trying to be real precise, generally if you're sketching, you'd probably just eyeball it and sketch in the best you can. But I'm going to show you how to make it a little more precise if that's what you want to do. So this is the area in question, this rectangle in perspective. I'll draw a little extension line up here at the doorway. This is the rectangle in question, the rectangle in perspective. Excuse me. So the first thing I'm going to do is find the center of this rectangle by putting in a couple of diagonals from corner to corner, opposite corner. Want to be fairly precise so that you get an accurate location at that point. Where those diagonals intersect is the center of this rectangle. So I'm going to draw a vertical line in here. So this line divides that rectangle in half. And in perspective, this distance, if you look at this line, it's obviously longer than this line. Well, that's what perspective does. Everything that's further away from you is going to look smaller than the things that are up close. So if you take two equal length lines in perspective, the one that's closest to you will look longer than this one. So that's what we have going on here. Okay, so now our rectangle is divided in two, and say we want to put 4 pictures on this wall. So then I would further subdivide. I would divide this rectangle with diagonals. Now it's going to get a little confusing, but I'm going to mark my points. So there's one point here, and I've got the line come down with another diagonal. And from this point to this point, there's the center of that rectangle. And I'll do the same with the second rectangle over here. 2 diagonals. Okay. And notice those diagonals, here's the cool thing. If I did this fairly accurately, or even used a ruler to make it super accurate, a line drawn through those midpoints where those diagonals intersect will go to the vanishing point, and mine does. It's pretty accurate. Okay. So now I've got this divided up into 4 equal parts. I'm going to sketch that line in so that I can see the 4 divisions. And I'm going to take out some of these diagonals just so you can see the 4 divisions a little more clearly. Okay, so there they are. So now that makes it fairly easy. I could put in a bottom line for the pictures, and maybe up here someplace going to the vanishing point. There's the upper and lower portions of the pictures. So then it'd be very easy to sketch in. Let me do this in a different color so you can see it better. I can just eyeball, for example, the space between those pictures. Say they're all equally sized pictures. So see the space I allowed between these 2 pictures? So the next one, that is going to get a little bit smaller, and that's something you can just eyeball. So there's the next space between the pictures, and then the final 2 pictures, barely a space, almost indiscernible. And there's the end of the last picture right there. So now I've sketched in 4 equally sized pictures, and you can see that as they recede in the distance, look at the width of that compared to this one. That looks more believable, okay? Okay, the next thing I want to show you is, let's say you're putting cabinets on this wall right here, and here's the bulk of the cabinet. So I'm just going to start out arbitrarily. I'm going to pick a line back here someplace where the cabinet will start. And the first thing I'm going to do is divide it in half. So I'll just do a diagonal on this rectangle. You want to be pretty accurate, because if you move the line one way or the other, your midpoint won't be the same. So there I've divided it in half, and I can just keep subdividing it. Subdivide this rectangle. And the same with this, just keep subdividing those rectangles. Now, if you look at this, you may stop here and say, well, there's my 4 doors. These would be huge. I mean, these would probably be about 2 or 3 foot size doors. So that would probably need to be subdivided even further. That's what I'm doing now. I'm subdividing those rectangles. So when you're doing this on your own sketch, you may use some different colors for the subdividing, but you'll get used to using all those different lines. You can kind of see where you're bringing that in at. Okay, that looks a little more believable. Let me darken those in real quick. So there would just be some rough locations for the cabinet doors. And say this is the end of the cabinet right here. Okay, that looks believable. The cabinet doors. Okay, again, that's the use of the diagonals. The last example, let's say you're putting a area rug on the floor, and it's kind of a symmetrical design. And just to get that going a little easier, let me just sketch that in a little bit. Okay, so there's the area rug. And if you have some kind of a symmetrical design, I can divide this in half with the diagonals. Doesn't matter whether that rectangle's on a horizontal surface or vertical or wherever it is. So here's the center. And because I've got the center, I can also draw a line from the vanishing point, and see that divides that into 4 quadrants. So that diagonal concept is very good for dividing up an area so that you can add some symmetrical design to it. So with these diagonals, look what I can do now. See this rug, and you'll see a lot of area rugs that have like a border. See how I just arbitrarily picked a distance in here to the vanishing point. Where that hits the diagonals, you go right on around, hit the diagonal up to the vanishing point, since that would be parallel to this line, and all parallel lines go to the same vanishing point. Gives me that point. And I can just keep going with that. So this is where maybe you've got some kind of a design to this thing. So see how these lines I'm putting in go to the vanishing point? So there's just a rough concept for an area rug. Maybe there's some kind of a design, but I've got these quadrants make it easy to put in symmetrical design. Okay, that's the use of diagonals. One more use. Let's say you've got a row of lights coming down on the ceiling. Let me think a minute how I would do that. Let's say the lights are coming down on a line right here. Okay, if I were, say I've got some lights that I want to locate in this ceiling. How do I locate those so they look believable in perspective? One easy way to do this, I'm kind of thinking on my feet, is I'm going to put in a rectangle around that. So here's the line that the lights are located on, and I've just put in a rectangle, or what is going to end up being a rectangle. So I'll locate the first light here. Can lights in the ceiling. And then if I draw a line from here on the ceiling and on that arbitrary line that I put in through the center of the can light, see what it gives me? I've got the beginning of a diagonal. Now I'm coming straight across parallel to the ceiling right here. So then I just keep putting in diagonals. This one's going to be way up here. So the equal distant, the next one is right here. And the next one after that would be way up here someplace. You can't even see it. So, but at least this locates, now I could even divide that in half and put another light closer to that. But that's the whole idea. I just drew a line that indicates the center line of those lights. And I suppose if I wanted to put those closer together, let me start another one here. I was just kind of thinking on my feet right there. But now that I see how that came out. So here's the center line of the lights. Let's start out right here. This is just an arbitrary rectangle I'm putting in. So if I draw a line from this corner, this point right here, through the center of that light, I get that point, come straight across. And then from this point through the center point again. That gives me right here, and across. There's the second light. This looks a little better. And then through that point up to here. There we go. And each light's going to get a little bigger than the last one. Okay, that's using the center. Now I could put lights in between these two. You know, I could divide this rectangle in half with diagonals and put a light in between here too. And I could do the same down here. I could do diagonals. That looks a little better like that. Okay. So it's just a matter of visualizing rectangles, diagonals, which is going to find the center of that, so I can keep subdividing. If I wanted to put a light in between, say, these two right here, create a rectangle, draw the diagonals, and there's my center line, and there's the third light. So I can just keep subdividing. These would all be equal distant apart. Okay, that should do it. Hope that helps.